What the hell are you talking about?
7 years from now, in the Balkans.
You get wounded real ugly, lying there with your guts out. You call for an extract, but they refuse. You survive, but you and S.H.I.E.L.D. are over with. And you fall right into the loving arms of Hydra.
So it's another week, another episode out of the 7th and final season of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're getting closer to the finale, only 3 episodes to go. Actually 2 weeks, because next Wednesday we're getting the 11th episode, and then the 12th and 13th episode, the finale of the series, is going to be airing the following week. Now, I would say this was one of the best episodes this season. Last week's episode was the best this season for me. Last week's episode was one of the best in the history of the series, in my opinion. But okay, welcome back guys to another one of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. review videos and my review of Broken, the 10th episode of the final season of the series. Now let us start with the new yet old character that appears on this episode for the first time this season, portrayed by James Paxton, John Garett. There's a lot of resemblance there to the older version of character, not just because of the hairdo and all of that stuff, but also because James Paxton is actually son to the late Bill Paxton, who portrayed the role of an older John Garett on the first season of the series. Now the other thing over here I want to talk about is so far we've gotten a villain out of every one of the first 3 seasons of the series. The Chronicoms are already a villain carrying over out of season 6. They were villains on season 6. Malick was there all the way through. We've got John Garett out of Season 1, we've got Jiaying and Gordon out of Season 2, even though they're not villains at this point. But yeah, in the end they were past villains, and we finally got the Malicks. Gideon Malick even appeared on this season, a younger version, and Gideon Malick is a villain of Season 3. Now, I'm not really sure if I should consider what we're seeing here as some kind of trend, but I still think that we're getting more villains, more characters out of other seasons. I think this final season is trying to be sort of nostalgic in a way by giving us references and moments out of previous seasons or characters out of previous seasons, and I think that we might actually get 2 more. I'm thinking Ada or Holden Ratcliffe or even the Superior, that's out of Season 4. But there's that other character though that I've got a strong feeling we're going to be seeing before the finale of the series, and that's a villain out of Season 5. That happens to be Talbot, who ended up becoming Graviton. I don't think we're going to see him as Graviton. I think he's going to be in a similar situation to what we see Jiaying in, like still a good person, still a good guy, and I think we're going to be seeing him probably on the finale if we do see him. But circling back though to James Paxton and the character of John Garett on this episode, now, I did like the bringing back John Garett on this episode. That I definitely liked, but I just didn't like the acting for the character. I felt this disparity between the older version and the younger version. And some will probably say he's young, he's excited, seeing all this stuff. But he is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I would say, no, he shouldn't be all this excited about every jump that he makes after he got those powers. But starting though from the top, the hottest recruit of S.H.I.E.L.D., John Garett, there is the talk about his incident in the Balkans, being left for dead by S.H.I.E.L.D. in the future, vowing to avenge himself and joining Hydra. We did listen to that story on the first season of the series, by the way. But funny enough though, while this is not really true to the comics, it is an Easter egg inspired by another character that we got to see on the series, Rick Stoner. Now, Rick Stoner in the comics was left for dead, no extraction, came back vowing revenge on S.H.I.E.L.D., leading to his death in that pocket dimension that he created using the Cosmic Cube during his conflict with Nick Fury. So, in a way, it is similar to Garett's death at the hands of Coulson, which is referred to on this episode as well. The vaporization of Garett.
I got fragged by an IED outside Sarajevo. When I radioed for medevac, I got nothing but an earful of excuses. That's when I realized I was more loyal to S.H.I.E.L.D. than S.H.I.E.L.D. was to me. So I decided if I made it out, if I survived, I was going to treat them the way they treated me.
But we jump from that scene to the Lighthouse scene. We got Roxy out of the Deke squad. I was hoping we're going to see the entire squad back. The entire squad did join the S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy, so they're going to become S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. There's that quick and initial Triskelion reference made by her, something that alarms Coulson. The timeline is completely messed up, as Sousa does mention later on in the events of the episode. The Triskelion should not be in use at this point in time. That, though, leads to a moment I've been waiting for, Mac handing the reins back to Coulson. Coulson is now unofficially director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it takes us back to the first 3 seasons of the series, the 4th season, after they made it back out of the framework, because during the period before that, it was Jeffrey Mace that was the director, and then finally, season 5, right up until his death at the end of the season, or while being left at Tahiti. Now, Daisy speaks to Sousa. She mentions their time in the Lighthouse, referring to the entirety of seasons 5 and 6, especially with the future arc and the latter Confederacy invasion of the Lighthouse, both of which should be capable of making them extremely unhappy with the place. I think it's also a pun on the fans' complaints about the lighting of the Lighthouse, the lighting of the majority of season 5. But there are a couple of moments of truth about Fitz on this episode. Yes, we might not be getting Fitz as of yet, but the Daisy and Simmons talk about the latter's devastation when they removed the Diana chip out of her in last week's episode. That does tell us early on that we're getting closer to knowing what's going on with Fitz. I mean, in all cases, it does make a lot of sense that we are closer to seeing him or to knowing what happened to him. I mean, all we've got is 2 weeks. We've got the Stinger on next week's episode. That might be the start of all of it, maybe even halfway through the episode. Team Nathaniel could possibly then figure out all about the chip, remove it, and start finding out information, mining information out of Simmons' brain. But if not, it's always going to be the finale, the final episode of the season. I'm always thinking the stinger of next week's episode is going to be the start of all of it, and then we're going to watch the rest on the episode that follows, on the finale. Now the next bit, I'm not going to dwell on it so much because I've already talked about it on a previous video, but I'm still having a little bit, or maybe even a lot of trouble with the time travel logic that they're using. It does not really agree with the previously used time travel logic on the series and also on Avengers Endgame. So yeah, I'm having trouble with this entire if we lose Jiaying, we lose you, we lose Daisy, like your existence is being threatened. I'm thinking the existence of the Daisy out of this timeline is being threatened, but not the Daisy that we know though, the Daisy that exists because of a different Jiaying out of a different timeline. This Jiaying that we've got over here, she's not the real mother, she's not the real Jiaying that gave birth to the version of Daisy that we're seeing right now.
Daisy, there's one other thing. At Afterlife, there was a woman who...
But we've got May almost dropping the bombshell, you've got a sister, Daisy, Cora is your sister. We've got Daisy meeting Jiaying for the first time this season. Once again, they come face to face since season 2. We've got Daisy trying to explain to her how they're trying to save all these Inhumans whose gifts Nathaniel wants to take away. We have Jiaying asking if that is even possible, and we got the look on Daisy's face. She informs her it is indeed possible. Now, I think the look on Daisy's face at that moment, that's a reference to Jiaying's ignorance of what is inevitably her fate, having her powers taken by Whitehall. Like, you poor bastard, you're asking this question and you don't know what's coming to you at the hands of Hydra. But speaking of surprise reveals, not to us the audience, but rather to the characters on the series, we've got Jiaying calling Cora her daughter, a bombshell dropping over Daisy's head.
But you have to bring back my daughter.
We've got the Jiaying-Daisy conversation, an emotional moment for Daisy, but a moment that she much needed, something she was looking for when she met Jiaying during the afterlife events of season 2, and something that she finally got on this season, like a certain kind of closure.
I can't speak to your mother's reasons, but for me, sometimes trying to do the right thing comes out all wrong.
You still have Daisy. Isn't one daughter enough?
I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you, but I could. You said about your mother. You were talking about me. It's okay.
But that was one or two bombshells, because the second one does get dropped, only this time it's on Jiaying's head, getting to know she's got a second daughter in Daisy. And Nathaniel, he's the one that makes the reveal over here. But yeah, that also comes with a reference to Dallas, the 80s TV series. We almost get a Quake versus Quake battle. I've been expecting that, I'm still wanting that, but that doesn't really go through, like not full scale go through. I did love, though, how Nathaniel mentions that, there's still untapped potential when it comes to Daisy's powers. Like, I've got those powers more than you did, and right at this point I know more about them. Like, in terms of number of years, he's got this powers for longer, and it is true, by the way. So, yeah, there's a lot of untapped potential for Daisy. But okay, out of the funny moments on this episode, and this one wasn't really meant to be funny, I did love that moment that Coulson referred to himself as recyclable. I did like the explanation presented, to explain the entire Cora situation, why we never heard about her before, why Daisy never knew about her or never met her on season 2 of the series. It is possible she was not alive then. All the talk about stealing that gun a couple of episodes ago, planning to shoot herself, kill herself, and in the original timeline she probably did so, because in the original timeline she was never interrupted by Nathaniel. When you think about it as well, there was no point at that time for Jiaying mentioning yet another one of her many wounds that did lead her to becoming the villain that she was. Daisy goes ahead and explains even more. It is possible that because of Cora's death, that Jiaying would leave Afterlife, go do charity work, and end up meeting Daisy's father, leading in return to Daisy's conception. Now, the next part I'm only mentioning because it is of impact on how we view next week's trailer, but there is still some room for Cora to be saved. I think so. That moment when she kills Lee, she's kind of hesitant at first, like when Nathaniel tells her to put him out of his misery, she's definitely hesitant there, but then she's easily provoked by Lee's words. There is a lot of residual anger over there, a lot of tension. We know that from a couple of episodes ago, so she does go ahead and kill him. However, though, you do look at her and you realize she's not really all that comfortable as she killed him. So while a big part of her has gone evil already, I'm thinking there's still hope for Daisy's sister. That or whatever's gonna go down on next week's episode is a play that's already been planned by both her and Nathaniel. Now, I think they are indeed hinting in the direction that everyone is thinking. Fitz is actually dead. Fitz is gone for good. But need I remind you, Fitz did communicate with the team on the very final moments of Season 6, right before they made their first jump, letting them know that they're about to jump at that moment.
Go code 98232. Fitz Zephyr 1 is charged with all crew accounted for, ready to launch.
Copy, Jemma. Glad to hear it. Tell him I'm sorry. Prepare for launch.
So yeah, I think they're just trying to throw us off that he is not dead. I think they've planned it all along to give us this impression, but he's definitely not dead. In my opinion, he's not. Otherwise, this would be one hell of a retcon of that final scene out of Season 5. Now, another thing that supports this is all the talk between Nathaniel and Simmons at the end of the episode, about Sybil wanting him, running the odds, and realizing that Fitz is the one common factor between every single scenario in which the two of them do not end up coming out on top. But there were a bunch of one-liners on this episode. My favorites all came out of the Coulson-Garett reunion, digging up our greatest hits, and also long-haired creep stabbed you with the pointy stick. That's a reference to Coulson's first death at the hands of Loki on the Avengers. As satisfying as it was on Season 2 to watch Gordon meet his maker, it was kind of a little bit emotional on this episode, a little bit sad, that is. The same does apply to Jiaying as well, her death on this episode, even though we do know that Jiaying is probably going to come back to life on next week's episode, her abilities and whatnot. But finally though, I think Enoch's death took a toll on Simmons and Deke. It's pretty obvious on this episode. The Zephyr being hijacked, I would say it is pretty scary. But I love how Deke is on board of the Zephyr at that point. I mean, it is at the very least one factor that these guys have not accounted for. This guy that they have no clue is on board of that spaceship, as Garett refers to it. With that said though, I'd say this is a very decent episode. I think it advanced the story by quite a decent amount. I also like the emotional moments of the episode. The funny on this episode wasn't too much, wasn't as much as last week's or the, Deke and Mac episode, but it still did exist at different points on the episode. I'd finally say, on an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. scale, this is definitely an 8 out of 10. But all of that said though, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Let me know if you think that Fitz is dead. I definitely don't think he is. Let me know when you expect he's gonna show up. Let me know what you expect is gonna go down on next week's episode. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it one of those much appreciated likes, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning into this one, stay safe, and have a great day.